Jonathan Greenblatt is here from the Anti-Defamation. I'm so sorry, I'm getting so choked up. It's just so much to take, Jonathan.
It's hard. It's hard. You know, I sat here with you 6 months ago after the shooting in Pittsburgh, where 11 people were gunned down in a synagogue while they prayed. I didn't think I'd be here 6 months later talking about the same story in a different community on the other side of the country.
Your statement after the shooting, you said this should serve as a call to action. What's the call?
Well, first and foremost, I think we have to keep in mind Lori Kay, who died, right? That her tragedy, that her martyrdom shouldn't be in vain.
Yeah.
And then I think secondly, you know, we said this and I'll say it again, anti-Semitism is at the core of this global terror threat of white supremacy. We need to recognize it for what it is. There is a through line from Charlottesville to Pittsburgh to Christchurch and now to San Diego County. And it is time from the White House to Congress to apply the resources to this problem that we've applied to the problem of sort of Islamic jihadist terrorism since 9/11.
Jonathan, anti-Semitism isn't new. I mean, for God's sake, of course it is not new.
No.
But when you list it out,
yeah,
this connection, it's not just one house of worship. It's not just one religion. It's Christians, it's Jews, it's Muslims, it's beyond.
Sure.
Where these attacks are happening, the fact that they are being targeted. Is there something new and different now?
Well, there are a few things that are different now, I think. I think, number one, I mean, we're living in this charged, polarized environment today. And we have a kind of degradation of the public conversation. Mm-hmm. We have, from the White House to the House of Representatives, people trivializing and politicizing anti-Semitism and other forms of intolerance. It's unconscionable, but that's different. Like the lack of decorum deteriorates the conversation to the detriment of all of us. The second thing that's very real, Kate, is social media. We need to recognize that this poison spreads, this infection spreads, because in part the extremists are exploiting Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and other services. This man was on 8chan, posted his manifesto to Pastebin, and there are plenty of others.
It's so sad that I even feel like I need to ask this question, but I feel like we are like at this place at this point. I mean, are people of faith around the country, around the world, are they safe to pray anymore?
We asked the same question after Mother Emanuel, the AME church, where Dylan Roof murdered people in the summer of 2015. And we asked the same questions after in Oak Creek, a man went into a Sikh Gurdwara and murdered people because of their faith. And we asked the same question after Colombo in Sri Lanka just a few weeks ago, where hundreds of people were murdered because of their faith. I think it is a sad state of affairs when we are not even safe in the pews where we pray, where our most sacred space has been violated. That's the thing to keep in mind. Yeah. This was an attack on a Chabad synagogue, on an Orthodox congregation, but this was an attack on the entire Jewish community. This was a terror attack intended to, spawn insecurity among all of us. And that's why these attacks on places of worship are so particularly heinous. I must say, unfortunately, in the Jewish community, like just in the last few years, since I've been the CEO of ADL, because we track anti-Semitism around the world, I visited synagogues and schools, supermarkets, where Jews have been killed simply because of who they are and how we pray. And it is long overdue for this to end.
The rising tide of white nationalism and anti-Semitism is something that no one should ignore, no matter what your faith is, of course. You brought up how, from the White House to Congress and beyond, about how the actions and conversations need to change. Yeah. When you hear, in President Trump, he spoke to the rabbi, and he spoke out very strongly condemning this hate-driven, anti-Semitic attack on this synagogue. He spoke up very forcefully about it over the weekend. But at the same time, after Christchurch in New Zealand, he was asked the very question if he thinks that white nationalism is on the rise around the world. And he effectively said no. He said, I don't think so. I think it's a small group of people doing a very bad thing. That was in March. And his advisor, Kellyanne Conway, just yesterday, speaking to Jake Tapper, the only way to say it is danced around repeated and direct questions on this very question. Is there a rising threat of white nationalism in the country? What impact does that have?
Sure. So let's focus on the facts. To the question, is there a rise of white supremacy in this country? The answer is yes. How do we know that? Because that's what the data tells us.
Yes.
The data tells us that in 2017, we saw a surge of anti-Semitic incidents of 57% year on year, the highest surge we've ever seen in 40 years.
This isn't made up. This is fact.
No. And in 2018, we tracked 50 extremist-related murders in the United States, 49 of which were people exhibiting an extremist sort of right-wing ideology. 70+% were white supremacists. So if we look at over the last decade, 3/4 of the extremist-related murders in the United States, I'm talking 73+%, were committed by right-wing extremists, typically exhibiting sort of a white supremacist ideology. So what does it matter what these officials say? The facts are the facts, and they're undeniable. What we really need are, number one, our leaders to lead, not just in response to a crisis. I am sick and tired of mourning dead Jews. I am sick and tired of people violating mosques and churches and synagogues. But I am equally fed up with failing to call this out and reinforce our values every day. Values of decency, of diversity, of our shared humanity, and fairness. That's what we need, not after a crisis, long before, whenever it takes place.
Just help stop it. Stop and change the conversation. The rabbi had said yesterday that a little bit of light can do a lot to push the darkness away.
That's correct.
We all need to do that a lot
That's
more
correct.
right now. Jonathan's going to be back with us. We have another part of this conversation. Unfortunately, more to talk about on this, and he's going to join me a little bit later. We'll be right back after this.